Welcome. Let's move on to business now. Alice is here with the travails facing Russia.
Absolutely right, David. Of course, we're assessing the economic impact of these ongoing crises in Ukraine and Crimea, because investors are expected to have moved more than $70 billion worth of assets out of Russia within the first 3 months of this year. It's the clearest sign yet that events in Crimea have raised fears about the future of the Russian economy. And with the prospect of tougher economic sanctions on the horizon, there's concern that there could be even more capital flight. Well, there are also warnings of stagnant growth and rising inflation inside Russia. Not good news for a country that grew by just 1.3% last year. Well, joining me now to discuss Russia's ailing economy and the impact of sanctions is Wolfgang Munchau. He's the co-founder and director of Eurointelligence, and he joins me live now from our Oxford studio. Many thanks for joining us, Wolfgang. $70 billion, that's a big number, and it's bigger than many in Russia were expecting, even Mr. Putin's senior economic advisor, Alexei Kudrin. How serious would you say that the situation is for Russia at the moment?
Oh, this is a very dramatic number, and this is only the official transactions. The unofficial numbers is usually much higher than that. So what you're seeing is this is already the effect of sanctions, even though we haven't announced big sanctions. The fact that we're holding them up, the fact that we're starting small sanctions on the financial side, means that a lot of Russians, a lot of anguished Russians, are taking their money out into Europe, into Britain in particular. And you know, this has been a trend that's been going on for years. So the numbers have been rising each quarter. Now this is like an explosion of this number. It used to be like 10,000, 12,000. I'm sorry, 10 to 12 billion dollars a quarter, and now it's gone up to 70 billion this quarter, and who knows, it's going to be, could easily reach 200 billion. That would be about 8% of the Russian economy. This is just an incredible number, and will almost certainly throw the economy into a very, very deep recession.
Wolfgang, as you say, all of this even before official sanctions have been announced, and particularly worrying seems to be these reports that German companies, of course one of the biggest sources for foreign direct investment inside Russia, are already beginning to repatriate some of their profits. How worrying is that specifically for Russians?
Now that is the other side of the coin. I mean, the 70 billion that you mentioned is just the net outflows of money. What we don't yet know is the fall of the net inflows, because lots of companies in the West have invested in Russia, which is now stopping. So all this net direct investment is falling off now. So if you actually look at net, the net outflows, there will even be bigger than this sort of 70 billion number suggests. So the combination of companies not investing in Russia and Russians taking their money out, this is what's causing the hemorrhaging of the Russian economy right now.
And Wolfgang, we're also hearing rumours that Russia might be kicked out of the G8. We already know from the US side that the G7 is going to meet in Brussels in June rather than that scheduled meeting in Sochi. How big or significant a snub is this for Russia?
It's a diplomatic snub. The Russians pretend not to care about it. At the moment, the mood in Moscow is relatively bullish. There is a lot of pride, national pride in the Crimea returning to Russia as they perceive it over there. But as the sanctions, the effect wears on, as the economy becomes fragile, as the economy turns down, as the recession becomes more severe, the current mood of optimism will easily turn. So my guess is that by the end of the year we're looking at a very different scenario in Russia. But for now, I don't think that all these diplomatic actions, the exclusion of the G8, I don't think they matter greatly. They are a big, important symbol, and Russia will probably not return to the G8 anytime soon. It is a very informal arrangement. The G8 is not an official body. They cannot be officially kicked out. These are seven leaders of industrial nations meeting informally, and they decided to meet without Putin. That's essentially what happened now.
which is, of course, a point that Putin and Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, have been keen to make as well. Wolfgang, for now, many thanks for joining us and giving us your analysis on this situation in Russia at the moment. Well, let's move on to a very different kind of story now and talk about young people across Europe, in particular those 18 to 13-year-olds still living with their parents, because a new report has found that the number of young Europeans living with mum and dad has increased to almost half since the onset of the economic crisis. In fact, 48% still live with their parents. That's 36.7 million people across the EU member states. And it's not just confined to Mediterranean countries where the crisis has, of course, been felt most keenly, and where there's also a real culture of living at home for much longer. Large increases were also seen in countries like Sweden, Denmark, France, Belgium and Austria. So what is the impact of this change in household structure, and are we seeing the rise of a dependent generation, and what does it mean for Europe's economic future? Well, let's talk now to Anna Ludvinek, the author of the report at Eurofound. Anna, this is a worrying trend, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.